Ray was 34 years old in 1994. He sold parts for a hardware supply company in a mid-sized city. Nothing glamorous, nothing anyone's parents bragged about at a dinner party. He made about $42,000 a year, and he owned a house, one car payment, a wife who worked part-time when she felt like it, 2 kids, and a 2-week vacation that he actually took every single summer without doing math about it first. Nora is 34 years old right now. She's Ray's daughter. She coordinates logistics for a distribution company, which is close enough to her father's old job that the family still jokes about it at Thanksgiving. She makes $90,000 a year. Adjust her father's salary for inflation, and hers is bigger. Her husband brings in another 70 on top of that. 2 incomes, 2 college degrees. They rent. They have not taken a vacation in 4 years. And last month, a $900 transmission repair turned into a genuine, whispered, after the kids are asleep, family crisis. Same family, same job, basically. More money, in real terms, from 2 people instead of 1. And somehow, a completely different species of life. Both of them, if you handed them a survey, would tick the same box. Middle class. My name is Nick, and today we're pulling apart the most quietly humiliating question in American life. Why do you have all the receipts of a middle-class existence? The job, the degree, the car in the driveway, and none of the actual life it was supposed to buy? Because I want to be very clear about something before we go one step further. You are not imagining this. You are not bad with money. You did not fumble it. Something moved and nobody sent you the memo. Let's start where every honest version of this has to start, which is with the possibility that I'm wrong, because the official numbers do not agree with you. If you ask the researchers who actually track this for a living, middle class isn't a feeling, it's a bracket. Roughly 2/3 to double the median household income. And by that definition, the middle class hasn't vanished, it shrank. In 1971, about 61% of American adults lived in a middle-income household. Today, it's somewhere around 51. That's a real drop, 10 points over 50 years. But it is not a disappearance. Half the country is still standing right there in the box. So the data looks at you kindly and says, you're fine, you're in the club, your income qualifies. Congratulations, and please stop complaining. And that right there is the gap that makes people insane. Not the money, the gaslighting. You're being handed a green check mark by a system that is measuring something you never actually cared about. Because here's the thing, nobody says out loud. The middle class was never an income bracket. That's the accounting version. That's the version that fits in a spreadsheet. Ray, in 1994, did not think of himself as middle class because he landed between 2 percentiles. He thought of himself as middle class because of what his paycheck could go out and buy. A house he could pay for on 1 salary. A doctor who wouldn't bankrupt him. A kid he could send to a state school without co-signing away his retirement. A pension, or something like one, and enough left over that a broken transmission was annoying instead of terrifying. That's the middle class. It was never a number, it was a basket. A specific list of things that a normal salary was supposed to reach. And once you see it as a basket instead of a bracket, everything snaps into focus. Because the number stayed, the number is fine, the number qualifies. The basket ran away. Let's go through it, item by item, and I promise you, the pattern is going to get uncomfortable fast. Start with the house, because it's the one people feel in their chest. In the 1970s, the typical American home cost somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 times the typical household's yearly income. Today, the median home is running roughly 5 times median household income. And in a lot of cities, it's cheerfully sailed past that. Meanwhile, the monthly payment on a typical house has roughly doubled since 2020 alone, because price and interest rates decided to hold hands and go up together. The share of buyers purchasing their first home just hit the lowest level ever recorded, and the typical first-time buyer in America is now 40 years old. 40. Ray was done raising 2 kids in a house by 40. Now healthcare. In 1999, the average employer family health plan cost about $6,000 a year total. Today, it's north of $25,000. That premium grew at multiples of general inflation, decade after decade, And here's the part that makes it invisible. Most of that increase gets paid by your employer out of the pool of money that would have otherwise become your raise. So it doesn't show up as a bill. It shows up as a raise you never got and therefore never mourned. You got robbed by a ghost. Now education. College tuition has increased at roughly twice the rate of inflation for decades running. A 4-year public degree with room and board is over $40,000 a year now. Private is closer to $70,000. Ray paid for his daughter's first 2 years out of a savings account. Nora is looking at a number that requires a financial instrument, a state plan, and a small prayer. Now, childcare, which is the one that quietly detonates household budgets in a way the previous generation genuinely does not understand. In much of the country, full-time care for one kid runs $11,000 to $17,000 a year. For 2 kids in a lot of metros, it exceeds the rent. It is functionally a second mortgage that hands you nothing at the end. And it did not exist as a line item in Ray's 1994 budget. Because in Ray's 1994 budget, it was a person, and that person was not being paid. And then retirement. Ray had a pension. Not a great one, but it was somebody else's problem to fund, somebody else's problem to invest, and somebody else's problem if it fell short. Nora has a 401k, which means all 3 of those problems are now hers, personally, in addition to her actual job. We took a professional responsibility and quietly reassigned it to a logistics coordinator in her spare time. And then we call that innovation. So here's the whole thing in one line. Your wages tracked inflation. The basket did not. Housing, healthcare, education, childcare, retirement, every single load-bearing pillar of the life you were promised, inflated at its own private, much faster speed. In general inflation, the number on the news, is an average across everything, which means it's being dragged down by the fact that a television is now basically free. That's the trick. That's the whole trick. You got very cheap televisions and very expensive everything that matters. And the average of those two says, you're doing great. But hold on. Because I said the middle class shrank by 10 points, and now you're probably picturing 10% of America sliding off a cliff into poverty. And that is not what happened. This is the part that makes the whole story weird. When the middle emptied out, it emptied in both directions. Roughly, the share of adults in lower income households went up by about 5 points. And the share in upper income households went up by about 5 points too. People didn't just fall out of the middle. Some of them climbed out the top, which is exactly why every chart looks fine. Because if you average a family that got wealthier with a family that got wrecked, you get a family that's doing okay, and that family does not exist. Nobody lives at the average. The average is a fictional character, and the money followed the people. In 1971, middle-income households took home around 62% of all the income in the country. Now it's down in the mid-40s. Upper-income households went from taking about a third of it to taking about half. So the middle didn't just get smaller in headcount, it got smaller in weight. It got less of the pie while still being told it was the pie. That's what hollowing actually means. Not a collapse. A ladder with the middle rungs quietly removed, people gathered at the top and the bottom, and a very confident economist standing next to it explaining that the ladder is, on average, structurally sound. Which brings us to the part of the title I haven't paid off yet. Nobody told the people still in it. Why not? Because that sounds like a cover-up, and it isn't. It's dumber than a cover-up, and honestly, a lot more depressing. Nobody told you because the instruments we use to check on the economy were built to measure the number. They were never built to measure the basket. Inflation gets tracked by pricing a giant hypothetical shopping cart of everything Americans buy. And everything in that cart is weighted, so the plummeting price of electronics gets to sit right next to the exploding price of a place to live and quietly cancel some of it out. The index isn't lying. It's answering a question you never asked. Median household income is worse. That one's an average of 2 people in a room and one of them left. It rises when the top half pulls away, which makes a country with a hollowing middle look like a country with a rising middle. And it does that with a completely straight face. Even the unemployment rate is in on it. It counts whether you have a job. It has nothing to say about whether that job does what your father's job did. Two people, fully employed, no slack, no pension, renting, both technically employed, statistically indistinguishable from Ray. Green across the board. So there's no conspiracy here. There's just a dashboard measuring three things beautifully, while the thing you actually live inside of goes completely untracked. And then anchors read that dashboard out loud on television every night with an encouraging tone of voice, and you sit on your couch holding the receipts, feeling insane. You're not insane. You're just the only one in the room reading the right instrument, and the instrument is your own life. Now let's talk about the thing that Ray genuinely cannot understand. Because from where he's sitting, it looks like his daughter should be twice as rich as he was. She has two incomes. He had one. So where did it go? This is the two-income trap, and it is one of the most brutally elegant ideas in modern economics. When Nora's mother went back to work part-time in 1994, that was surplus, extra. It went toward a boat they didn't buy and a vacation they did. But when an entire generation of households sends a second earner into the workforce, that doesn't make everyone richer. It makes everyone bid. Because the good school district didn't get bigger. There's still one of it. And now every family competing for a house in it has two incomes to throw at the auction instead of one. So the price rises to absorb exactly what the market can pay, which is now two salaries. That's not a conspiracy. That's just what an auction does when everybody's wallet doubles at the same time. So the second income didn't create breathing room. It became the price of entry. It got fully consumed by housing and childcare, the second of which only exists because of the first. And here's the truly vicious part, the part that keeps me up at night a little. Ray's household had a spare tire. If Ray lost his job, his wife could go work full time. That was the emergency plan. It was unpaid, unglamorous, and it was real. Nora's household has no spare tire. Both adults are already fully deployed. There is no reserve to call up. If either one of them stops working, everything stops. So Nora's family is technically richer than her father's, and structurally more fragile than his ever was. Higher income, zero slack. That's the trade nobody explained. And look, if you're sitting there feeling something crawl up the back of your neck right now, that recognition thing where you go, oh, that's why. That's exactly why I put together a school community. It's where I break down how I take this kind of research and turn it into a faceless YouTube channel that actually grows. The digging, the scripting, the whole system, step by step. No gatekeeping, no upsell. If you've ever thought about building something of your own out of this exact kind of curiosity, links are in the description. Come hang out. All right, now I owe you the other side because I refuse to sell you doom. And the honest version of this story has a counter argument that is genuinely strong. Life is materially better now than it was in 1994 in ways that are easy to sneer at and hard to actually give back. Ray's house was 1,200 square feet with one bathroom and no air conditioning. Nora's rental has central air, and her father thinks that's a scandal. Cars don't kill you at the rate they used to. A phone in your pocket does things that were literal science fiction in Ray's living room. Ray died a little bit every summer in that house and called it character. And there's a real argument that the middle class shrank, partly because people graduated out of it. 19% of adults are in upper income households now versus 14 back then. That's 5% of the country whose lives got measurably better, and pretending that didn't happen to score a rhetorical point would make me a liar. So the fair version is not everything is worse. The fair version is much stranger than that. Your stuff got cheaper and better. Your life got more expensive and more fragile. You have a nicer television inside a house you're renting from someone who bought it in 2012. That's not a slogan. That's just what the numbers say when you stop averaging them together. So let me compress this whole thing into 3 beats in case you drifted off somewhere around the transmission. The middle class was a basket, not a bracket. Your wages tracked inflation and the basket didn't. And the middle didn't collapse. It hollowed in both directions, which is exactly why the charts keep telling you you're fine. Basket, not bracket. Wages tracked, basket ran. Hollowed, not collapsed. Now, here's what I actually want you to do with this, because being correct about why you're stuck is worth precisely nothing if it becomes a hobby. Understand what actually changed about your job. Ray was handed a middle-class life. It came bundled. Pension included, house attainable on one salary, healthcare handled, kids' tuition manageable out of savings. He didn't build it, he showed up and it arrived. You have to assemble yours, piece by piece, from parts, on your own time, using instruments he'd never heard of. The retirement account is yours to fund and invest. The emergency fund is yours to construct out of nothing. The health coverage is yours to decode. The house, if you get one, is yours to engineer over years, not receive at 30. And I want to be honest with you about how that feels. It's worse. It's objectively a worse deal, and it is more work, and you did not agree to it. Anybody who tells you that's an exciting opportunity is trying to sell you a course. But it is the only game on the board. And the specific trap, the one that actually costs people their 30s, is waiting. Waiting for the deal to come back. Waiting for one salary to be enough again, for housing to correct, for somebody to notice you're doing everything right and hand you the bundle your father got. That's the thing I need you to stop doing. Because that package isn't coming back. And every year you spend waiting for it is a year of compounding you're handing to somebody else for free. The good news, and it is small, but it's real, is that the assembly is boring. It's automatic contributions you never see. It's index funds you don't touch. It's a slow, ugly emergency fund built at $25 a week. It's refusing to let your expenses eat every raise the second it lands. None of it is clever, none of it is fast. It is genuinely just a person quietly buying their way onto the field, one paycheck at a time, while the scoreboard ignores them completely. Ray's still in that house, by the way. It's paid off. He genuinely does not understand why his daughter is struggling. And when they talk about it, he says something about how they should really watch their spending. And Nora smiles and changes the subject, because what is she supposed to say? He isn't cruel. He's just holding a map of a country that stopped existing. And Nora is 34 with 2 degrees, 2 incomes, 2 kids, and no spare tire, doing the math on a transmission at 11 at night. Both of them on paper in the same box. Same label, 2 completely different planets. The label isn't coming back. That's the part I need you to actually sit with. The middle class, as a thing you get handed for playing by the rules, is over. And no election, no raise, no correction is gonna mail it back to you. So here's the question I'll leave you with, and it's the one that actually matters. If nobody's ever gonna hand you that life again, what's the first piece of it you'd start building yourself? And what exactly are you still waiting for permission to begin? Sit with that one. And if you wanna figure it out next to other people doing the same thing, you already know where I'll be. I'll see you in the next one.